hopefully getting live with you all. Hello and welcome to our newest webinar here at Syntasso. We're gonna let people start to come in. I know that we can be running between our virtual rooms when we are, working from home and dialing into all these calls. So appreciate you all taking the time to join us. If you want to tell us where you're calling in from and all that, please do. It's always nice to put names and faces to the people out there during these webinars. And we'll be taking live questions at the end of the session as well. So it's a good test of making sure we hear from you all as we go. So um, we're going to give another kind of 20 seconds, 30 seconds, let people kind of join in, but very excited to be here and chatting about platforms with you all. So let's just give that a minute to join. Daniel, what do you have with you for drinks today for the webinar? Are you just a water guy, afternoon coffee? What are you at?
I'm legit just on the coffee. Sorry, on the water today, Abby. I've had my
Otherwise,
coffee, and like I'm just thinking, like coffee in a presentation, I tend to talk fast already. Do you know what I mean? And if I have more coffee, that's only going to make it more dangerous.
this is and it's an afternoon for us here in London area vicinity. So the afternoon coffee is always a little tricky. You never know who goes for them, who doesn't. Got one more coffee for the day. That's what I'm on. So if I start rapid firing questions, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. It's gonna be a tough one. All right. So we will get started now. The best part about these webinars is they're all available on YouTube after the fact. So for people who are joining in late, they'll be able to catch up, and you can share this with people if you're interested. So what we're here today to talk about is beyond the platform facade and why portals and pipelines aren't enough. And Daniel's going to give us a great talk, and I'll share a bit more hints about where it's coming in a minute. But the big thing to keep in mind is that this is all about you all asking us questions as well. So what we're going to try and cover today is around the facade, and we are going to talk about portals and pipelines in themselves, but also what they maybe lack when you're talking about a more complete platform orchestration. When platforms are trying to do so much for an organization around speed, safety, efficiency, and scalability, what else do you need on top of those existing portals and pipelines? And if you've heard anything come from Syntasso in the past, you'll know that we are absolutely obsessed with making sure that the efforts that go into these platforms are long lived. And so I'm so glad Daniel's also going to be touching on how to make sure that the effort you put into your platforms is going to be something that lasts for years and years and not just that first hit of dopamine. So um, I've mentioned that it's going to be Daniel speaking. I'm Abby Bangser. I work at Syntasso as a principal engineer and have built platforms for many years across a number of different domains as a consultant, as well as an in-house engineer at a few startups and larger organizations. But I'm excited to be hearing from Daniel, who has a wealth of information on this. So Daniel, would you mind introducing yourself and kind of kicking off today?
Yeah, thank you very much, Abby. It's interesting. So the roles reversed, right? I'm usually introducing you into these webinars, and now it's great to see you doing the same. So thank you very much. Hey everyone, great to see you again. So yeah, I've had a long career, dare I say it, as a Java developer initially. Then I moved into architecture, ultimately ops, built a bunch of platforms, some on as a raw cloud, then on Mesos, and later on Kubernetes as well. So yeah, happy to share, like I say, my experiences today. If we press on, I do want to set the scene a little bit before diving into some of the things that Abby hinted at with the platform and portals portals and pipelines anti-pattern. So setting the scene, platform engineering is hot right now. I'm sure if you're rocking up to this webinar, you're watching the recording, you pretty much know that, right? It is definitely really hot. And Gartner folks have been doing some great commentary over the last couple of years. There's a platform engineering hype cycle. It is paywalled, but it's very interesting. And they did this great diagram that they put up, I think it was almost 2 years ago now. And myself, Abby, the team, we wrote some blogs around these things, kind of like the three tiers of platform engineering, which we'll dive into later. But I think for setting the scene, the most interesting thing that Gartner folks are saying, and this was 2 years ago, and now it's kind of danger close, right? But they were saying 2 years ago, by 2026, as in next year, approximately 80% of large orgs are going to be building a dedicated platform engineering team to create an internal developer platform. Platforms, there's a bunch of different names, IDPs, they kind of get mixed up sometimes. Fundamentally, it's like being being sort of like actually intentionally building a platform Now, because you've always got a platform, if you're shipping code, you've always got a platform, right? You've always got some notion of the way you interface with the CI/CD tooling, the way you interface with the actual infrastructure you're deploying onto. There's always a platform there, but we're being a lot more intentional these days. Dare I say it, we're even building a platform as a product. PAP, platform as a product. And this is a big thing. And this is what the Gartner folks are saying. They're saying big enterprises, and at Syntasso, we work with banks, government, financial services folks. These folks are really investing a lot in building out their platform. There are challenges. The Gartner hype cycle, you get the peak of inflated expectations and then down the trough of disillusionment. We're kind of heading into the disillusionment, I think. A quick look on Reddit just shows you, like I spent months building this platform. The devs hate it. Help me understand why. I've literally lived this 5+ years ago when I was working for a few consultancy gigs. We were not talking to our customers, the developers, and building platforms that didn't actually meet their needs. I recognize this all too well. But there's things like, am I a bad platform engineer or just bad at this company? And then there's a classic, like, I built a portal. Why is it not a platform kind of vibe? And at Syntasso, we love Backstage. Many of our customers use Backstage. We know the Spotify folks quite well. I'm not going to pick on Backstage per se, but Backstage is crazy popular. If you look at the DX surveys recently, they were saying like it's as much as like 90% of adoption around portals is focused on Backstage. So if you're on Reddit, you often see people saying, "Oh, got Backstage," and it's not a platform. And to be fair, I think Backstage has been advertised as a framework for building a portal, but sometimes this gets lost in the kind of communication, right? So there are lots of challenges with building a platform, and this is what we're going to dive into today. We're specifically going to focus on the portals and pipelines. It's portals, pipelines, and workflow engines anti-pattern, because we're bumping into this more and more in the community, like in the CNCF community, our internal OSS Slack, also prospects and customers we're working with, and we definitely see time and time again these 2/3 things popping up: the portals, the pipelines, the workflow engines. Winding it back, a lot of folks start by building a platform from this point. A mandate comes down, particularly on the bigger companies we work with, the enterprises. A lot of stuff, rightly or wrongly, is top down, right? So a mandate arrives, you're now responsible for building a platform. And maybe you're a head of cloud, head of platforms, director of cloud infrastructure, whatever your title is, right? Maybe you're an individual contributor, and I see, like, you've been tasked with building a platform. You Google, you chat GPT, pick your poison, right? However you want to find it out, and you spot around this platform engineering, platform building topic some familiar technologies. This makes you happy. You see developer portals, Backstage is everywhere, Cortex doing great stuff as well. You see CI/CD tools. You're familiar with these. This is great, right? And you see workflow engines. Increasingly, folks like Temporal and N8N are really talking around the platform engineering space. You're thinking, right, I've got my tools. How do I assemble these into a platform? This is kind of like, not quite sure. Most folks I chat to in the community and our customers do have some idea of success. They don't always have metrics, and we actually work a lot with folks to say you really do need metrics of success when you're building a platform. And I'll doff my cap to Camille and Ian. Their fantastic book on O'Reilly, Platform Engineering, is well worth a read. You'll see on previous presentations I've done, I'm always hat tipping that book. It is an amazing book. But folks are generally saying success is something like improved developer experience, like the speed, the safety, the scalability, efficiency that Abby mentioned earlier on. They might be looking to improve compliance and governance. We see this a lot in financial service companies trying to really get that, PCI DSS or that SOC 2, those very specialist financial accreditations and compliance as well. A lot of folks, pretty big enterprises, want to make sure their platform is actually adopted. They don't want to build this platform and then have everyone do their own thing. And they want to make sure it's easy to contribute to the platform. So these are sort of things like success. But if you look there, you've got that one, step one. I know I'm going to be Googling around building my mental models. We know we've got step 3, success. Step 2 is a bit fuzzy, and it kind of, show my age here, but it reminds me of this classic South Park meme with the gnomes collecting underpants, except here we're collecting dev tooling. We're not quite sure that step 2, that phase 2, but we know what profit, what success looks like. And today I'm going to kind of say to you, think about platform as a product, think about platform orchestration, and I'll break that down in a moment. These, I think, are the missing gaps that help kind of glue these portals, these pipelines, these workflow engines, and the infrastructure all together to create a platform. That's the pitch. Let's now dive into portals, pipelines, and workflow engines, and then we'll go on to platform orchestration. Now, portals are fantastic, right? As in all the tools are here. I've put, these are the tools we kind of commonly bump into when we're chatting to customers, prospects, the community folks. As an ex-developer, I very much value the improved discoverability with portals. Back in my days when I was coding Java stuff, working on SOA architectures, it was a nightmare trying to figure out what was where and do I have to rebuild that thing or do I build that thing? Is there someone else who's got this component already available? Discoverability with portals is fantastic. The user-friendly kind of kicking off of workflows and templates is again incredible. Like, as soon as you show folks backstage, they'll be like, "Oh, I get it. Like, I can create a new service or a template, click a button." Like, I'm a CLI person. Like, I grew up on the CLI using a lot of Linux and things. But when I started consulting in more Microsoft shops, .NET shops, those folks really love the UI, and I come to recognize the value of a UI for doing my day-to-day tasks. Yes, I love the CLI, I love my IDE, but sometimes I do just like a good UI for kickstarting things and getting a visual update of what's going on. The not so good stuff, there is this lack of user observability. Now, I'm borrowing this term from Camille and Ian, that book I referenced earlier, fantastic book. And they talk a lot about this notion of once you've pressed that button, can you understand what's going on behind the scenes? Do you know what workflows are being triggered? What APIs are being called? What's the lifecycle management like of that service? Do I own it? Do you own it? Who owns it? There's this lack of user observability often with portals. And there is no lifecycle guarantees or compliance enforcement unless you build it yourself. The portals are very open, or I should say Backstage is very open about this. Like, you can build plugins, you can build things around it. Cortex, other folks have got different opinions on how they manage some of the lifecycle guarantees and things. But fundamentally, a lot of out-of-the-box OSS portals or DIY portals we bump into do not think about the day two experience. And this is a massive challenge because as engineers, we spend the most time in day two. We love building day one, we love shipping stuff, right? The maintenance, the upgrading, all that stuff is really important day two. CI/CD tooling. Now, I grew up as a Jenkins person or even a Hudson person, showing my age, right? But if I migrated to Jenkins, it's been around for years. Fantastic tool. GitHub Actions, GitLab, we bump into all these folks, like some amazing CI/CD tooling out there. Excels at deployment logic, conditional paths, parallelism, blast radius control. Run everything in a container these days. If it blows up, doesn't take out your whole server. CI/CD tooling is battle tested and it's familiar, right? We love it for CI, for continuous delivery as well. A big thing with classic CI/CD tooling and CD tooling is there is no state management. They're fundamentally transient. Now, GitOps gets over this a little bit because you have your sort of like declared state of the world and the actual state of the world. There's still, it tends to be more application specific rather than like multi-cluster specific. So I'd even argue some of the GitOps tools are not persistent at the kind of overall platform layer, but definitely the classic CI/CD tooling is very transient in nature. You run your job, something gets deployed, something gets updated, that's it. There is no state tracking there. The two big challenges are drift. Someone kind of updates something on the server, pushes out a manual hack, and unless you're constantly reconciling your actual CI/CD pipelines, you can very easily get drift across the enterprise. The second thing is duplication of tooling. Because these tools weren't really designed as platform tools per se, or platform building tools, it's very hard to sort of contribute and catalog what you're doing. So when I go into organizations, often we see several different ways of doing SBOM generation, several different ways of doing policy enforcement, because different people around the org have built their own Jenkins plugin, or one person's using Jenkins, one person's using GitLab, and like it's not consistently applied across the platform. Bit of a challenge. We're bumping into a lot of workflow engines. Again, I've used these more as a dev aspect. They are really powerful at what they do. Sort of durable execution frameworks in particular. Temporal, love me some Temporal, bumping into it a lot. Camunda, I've known the founders for years. Really good work in there. Sinatra Flow, we're bumping into more. That's that image on the top right. With Red Hat folks using that a bit, I think. And NA10 are doing really well as well. Now, these offer excellent control over your workflows. All that retry logic, the error handling, parallel tasks, the durability, getting manual approval of things, these are your tools. They are fantastic at that. They're not really platform tools per se, but they're really good at managing the workflows. They can even handle some level of complex task orchestration. Not necessarily platform orchestration, but they do task orchestration, and they kind of put it all together in a single run. The UIs, and on the commercial side of these tools, the UIs are really fantastic. I know we worked with a few prospects that have shown us how they've set up Temporal and Camunda to show their pipelines running. Like, the visual aspect of it is really quite powerful too. but they're not platform tools. They don't enforce policies at sort of the platform level. They don't track ownership. Sure, you can mangle together a bit of portal and pipeline, but this is a kind of challenge we're going to dive into in a moment. You're often writing your own glue code. You're sort of maintaining the platform brains, the orchestration yourself. If you want to manage upgrades, this is another challenge too. And again, same as with the CI/CD tooling, it leads to drift because folks are not regularly running workflows, for example, unless you're regularly reconciling. It can be you can easily get drift, and contributing sort of to the platform components is very difficult because these tools were not built with the kind of platform as a product mindset. They don't easily enable sort of contributions. They don't define sort of platform APIs or platform lifecycle hooks, things like that. They're really good tools for what they do, workflow management, not so good for the platform space. So this is kind of exposing the facade we talked about in the title, right? Developer portals, amazing for the user interface, but they're fragile if you don't have the sort of brains, the engine, the orchestration behind it. The platform, the portal is a kind of facade, a veneer onto sort of the actual platform itself. So portal is just sort of one part of a platform. Workflow engines, CI/CD pipelines, amazing at automation, and we actually see people using. We use workflow engines within Kratix, the tool we work with as well. They're really good at automating steps. They're not so good at platform orchestration. You need some higher level concepts, which I'll give you some pointers to in a moment. So this is when we talk about sort of the facade of the portals and pipelines anti-pattern. This is it in a nutshell. Now, I talked earlier on about the Gartner model of platform engineering. And if you look now, I've put some boxes around here. This is what myself and the team at Syntasso did when it came out a year or two ago. And we said, hey, there's kind of three levels, three tiers, if you like, within this diagram. There's a more application developer focused top bit. There's this platform orchestration bit in the middle, and there's this infrastructure bit at the bottom. And this is a useful mental model about making sure you build a platform that supports these three things. Because for me, it's very tempting to try and skip a layer, but you end up sort of pushing things around. Like you always, in my mind, you always need these three things. We do see people pushing platform orchestration up into the user interface, but my early Java days, my mentors drilled into me, never put your business logic in the presentation tier. Because if you want to change the presentation tier, you're highly coupled to the business logic. And that, in my mind, applies to this model too. But let's dive in a little bit more. Platform orchestration. We're standing on the shoulders of giants. Like we've not made this term up at Syntasso. I think it was like we first bumped into it. Well, we're definitely keen to get, sort of ride the coattails. Well, I think we bumped into it on the ThoughtWorks Tech Radar. I know some other folks have talked about it as well. But just sort of going around the houses, like we've seen the crossplane, the Upbound folks talk about this a lot in relation to crossplane. They have sort of composite resources which are fantastic for orchestrating that middle layer of all the various functions and various CRDs they have to build infrastructure on Kubernetes. The Canoe folks, you haven't bumped into Canoe, well worth a Google. I know they're sort of working on their mental models now. Carlos and crew are always doing fantastic posts on LinkedIn, so check them out. But they again have this notion of platform orchestration within their architecture diagram, and I've called it out here. It's kind of the brains of the actual platform they're pitching. The Humatic folks, the platform engineering org folks, have actually got this platform tooling landscape, and it's kind of like the CNCF landscape, but a bit easier to manage, right? And they explicitly call out the platform orchestration components. And there's Humatic, there's us, Kratix, there's Fusion Stack from the Ant group in there, bunch of tooling that this is kind of the brains of your platform, the orchestrator of your platform. Now, obviously at Syntasso, we are very much leaning into this. Kratix, the framework we've created, is literally a platform orchestrator. It helps you build a platform as a product. And if you look, you can sort of see the three tiers in our diagram. I've explicitly put the red box around the sort of orchestration component, but this is kind of the brains of your platform, if you like. So it's not just us thinking about this. The industry is kind of coming, I think, together to say, hey, definitely got this sort of application interaction layer in the platform. You've definitely got the infrastructure below, but probably you need some orchestration in the middle to kind of glue it all together. We often get asked, why move from automation to orchestration? And this is the kind of the crux of some of the portals and the pipelines anti-pattern. People are like, I like my portal, I like my pipelines. Why do I need to go to orchestration? Good question. We push back a little bit of funny. I think Colin made this up. Colin's our co-founder and CEO. I think he was the one that coined this puppy for Christmas anti-pattern. And I Googled and I found a really, I'm sure terrible movie. I've not watched it, right? A Hallmark movie, Puppy for Christmas. But it's really nice. I recognized it as a developer when I was working with platforms. That the Puppy for Christmas anti-pattern is you're given something on day one, the experience is great, but then day 2, 3, 4, 5, it gets harder. It gets, messy. And this is like having a puppy for Christmas, right? I'm more of a cat person myself, but as in I can imagine I get a puppy for Christmas, great, bundle of joy, cuddles, exciting, awesome. Day 2, I've got to, feed the puppy. Got to clean up after the puppy. Day 3, I've got to take it for a walk. Day 4 or 5, I've got to take it to the vet. Once you have an animal, it's a real big investment, right? You've got to look after it. It's not just that day 1 excitement of, ooh, bundle of joy, puppy. It's very much the same, being given service templates for platform components. I remember clicking buttons on sort of portals I had back 10 years ago, pre-Backstage, being given a skeleton of a Java service, some Terraform code to deploy my Postgres, my Redis cache maybe. Happy days, right? Click the button, got the skeleton code in Git, checked it out, did my thing, deployed the app. But the problem is then day 2, Postgres needs to be upgraded. Now I'm responsible for that service. I'm responsible for that puppy. Do you know what I mean? And this is the challenge. Like, very easy as a developer to be given operational responsibility without me kind of knowing about it. So this is the crux of the portals and pipelines challenge, the puppy for Christmas anti-pattern. A lot of companies accidentally trade off friction and toil. So they want to reduce friction for developers to get started, that day 1 experience, but in doing so, they accidentally make it harder in day 2, day 3, day 4. They increase toil over those days. And let's be honest, day 1 is just one day. Day 2, 3, 4, hopefully your your application is in production for a long time. The day 2 experience is a much longer and much more impactful, arguably, than the day 1 experience. The sort of puppy for Christmas thing, we say self-service without orchestration. You clicked it, now you own it. I've clicked it in the portal, I've clicked it in the Amazon, Cloud GUI or whatever. I now own that thing, right? The challenge of this, you get orphaned resources as people forget what they've clicked. People move on from companies, right? And stuff just hangs around. You get this drift from policy. Like I say, as a developer, I had my own goals. I wanted to, solve business problems. And then I had the ops folks saying to me, "You got to upgrade Terraform. You got to upgrade Postgres or whatever." And I'm like, wow. And I would sometimes not do that, right? And then my service would not be compliant with the company guidelines, which was a dangerous place to be at times. I became an accidental operator when I was a developer. I enjoyed it. I leaned into Bash. I leaned into Terraform. I learned cross-plane. But when I was consulting, a lot of app devs did not want to do this. They pushed back and started raising lots of tickets with the platform teams. So the poor centralized platform team just gets overwhelmed with Jira tickets, ServiceNow tickets, open a port, virus scanner's not working, this is not working, how do I do SBOMs? Lots of backwards and forwards, lots of handoffs, lots of delays. This is the challenge where you're optimizing for that day 1 experience and not thinking about the day 2 and onwards. Automating the provisioning of a resource is just the beginning of the life cycle. Be aware of that. If you're building a whole effective platform, you need these things. And this just, I think it's sort of what we see from the community, what we see from customers too. So definitely happy to discuss more on these things. But the most successful platforms we've seen have a clear API or a contract between the developers and platform folks, so developers and operators sometimes. They have strong lifecycle guarantees, kind of guarantees of day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. They have composable workflows in a structured way that allows people to contribute to them. There's clear ownership over those contributions, and there's governance and compliance supported in the platform. If you don't have these things, you get platform decay. Abby mentioned it early on. Abby actually did a fantastic webinar probably a year ago. Our roles were reversed in that one. I was hosting, Abby was presenting, and we talked a lot about the dangers of platform decay, where the platform kind of rots, and then you just find people doing shadow IT and doing their own thing and not using the platform you've created, which is horrendous for so many reasons. All the investment you put in is wasted. People are doing non-compliant things. You definitely don't want that. A bunch of resources. Hopefully they'll be flashing up on the screen. We'll share the slides later on, but I didn't want to leave you kind of like with these things and then you go, well, how do I actually build these things, right? Abby did a fantastic talk 2 years ago now at State of OpenCon around how to think about APIs for your platform. We blogged it on Syntasso recently because we're getting so many questions around this stuff. So check out that one. Abby also talked about what we can learn from over-the-air updates, like over-the-air car updates, mobile phone updates, how that relates to lifecycle guarantees. That is well worth a read too. Derek, our colleague, did a fantastic post around thinking about composable workflows. Now, we call the kind of platform components, platform services promises in Kratik's world, so how to build compound promises, but it's a really nice way to think about structuring how you build your platform. how you build those Lego blocks, or Legos for our American friends, right? You're building those Lego blocks of Postgres, cache, Java service. That's a know your customer service. That's then integrated with other services. And before you know it, you've got quite a tall structure of, services, compound promises. That's great. That's what you want. You want reusability. You want to do these things, but you also want to have clear life cycles for each of those components as well. Abby's recently blogged, been working with Colin and Jake on our team around the CI/CD abstraction models. If you want to know about sort of ownership models, governance, these things. And I blogged, I think about 3 months ago now, and I was chatting to a lot of financial folks around continuous compliance, how to make sure your platform enforces these things. So plenty of resources. I'm sure poor Enti behind the scenes of the webinar here is furiously trying to share all these URLs, all these links. Don't worry, we'll share them with a blog perhaps. We'll share them other ways as well. So if you do want to get hold of all these blogs, all these links, we'll make it happen. Just reach out to one of us somewhere and we'll find it, and we'll get it to you. From automation to orchestration. This is a bit of an eye chart slide, but I wanted to put it up. Check out some blog links at the end as well. We talk about you want to measure your platform in terms of 4 pillars, the 4 pillars of value. And we've got more material coming out for this. Stay tuned. There's going to be some special surprises at KubeCon in Atlanta coming up soon. We're going to have some material around this. But we talk about evaluating a platform in terms of speed of delivery, safety, compliance, all that good stuff, efficiency, how do you manage your fleet, how do you scale, upgrades, that kind of thing, and scalability. How do you upgrade, maintain, evolve the platform? So those are our 4 key pillars. We've blogged about it. You can check it out on the website. But I wanted to break it down a little bit between automation and orchestration. So if we run down through the automation, the kind of portals and pipelines approach to building platforms is often very short-term focused. It is that puppy for Christmas, that day one experience. The safety is scattered because it's very hard to contribute to kind of like compliance and enforce it to the platform. Efficiency tends to be very pipeline focused and lots of duplication of logic because of that. My pipeline works, my pipeline works, my pipeline works, but they're not kind of consistently coordinated. And scalability, because these tools aren't really built for platforms per se, contributing to them, inner sourcing based on these things is quite a challenge. Where if you go to this mode of kind of platform as a product, orchestration, you try and balance the focus on day 1, day 2 more. The speed thing is key on day 1, speed thing is key on day 2. Safety, there's like, depending on what platform orchestrator you adopt, but there should be some way of enforcing policy and compliance in a standardized mechanism, and it should be reconciled continuously. It's GitOps at a kind of higher level of platform level as opposed to just kind of services. You also do like drift detection, things like that. Efficiency wise, you want to make the platform collaborative by nature. Like our flagship customer, NatWest, has done an amazing case study for us, and they have, like, NatWest is a big 4 bank here in the UK. They have multiple teams contributing to their version of Kratix. They have database specialists, networking specialists, security specialists, and they're all contributing their expertise in a controlled way, in a coordinated way, using a tool like Syntasso Kratix Enterprise. But any platform orchestrator will allow you to kind of coordinate and encourage this collaboration around the platform. And you do want to scale it out. You want to make it all composable. You want to, as Paula, my boss, says, you want to make it multiplayer, right? You want to have all these different people that I talked about just a moment ago making it very easy for them to contribute to the platform, particularly if you're a big enterprise, big bank, big government organization. Like the ones that are most successful that we work with, they really do embrace this model of this kind of multiplayer mode. Platform democracy, we call it various different things, but it should be very easy to contribute to the platform. The ownership should be clear as well. Appreciate this is a whistle-stop tour. Put the slide up, brain dump, check out the blog. That'll probably make it even more concrete in your mind as well. Rolling towards the end of talking, and Abby and I will take some Q&A, but building a true platform, sort of moving beyond just the portals and pipelines. If you want to get that impact and that return on investment, you want to think that portals are a really good tool for controlling the user interaction with the platform. The portals are a part of the platform. They're not, portals and platforms are not the same thing. Portals are how users interact with the platform. Pipelines and workflow engines are amazing tools at what they do within the platform. But I really think you need some level of orchestration, some intelligent glue to bundle it all together. Good API of the platform, good lifecycle management, and good composability. And you need to be very intentional about that, which is like portals and pipelines out of the box don't kind of give you that mental model or even that kind of framework to actually build around. Going back to my beloved Gartner diagram with the three markups here, right? The three tiers, if you like. I genuinely believe this stat is on point. We're bumping into so many folks. Like we go to PlatformCon, we're going to be at PlatEng Day, KubeCon, FastFlowCon, KCD UK. A lot of conferences you'll see us at. Everyone we chat to, yes, it's a self-selecting audience, but everyone we're chatting to is building a platform, and we bump into folks across the gamut. We bump into startups, old school enterprises, government, US, UK government organizations. Like seemingly everyone from every walk of life is building a platform. Our advice is build that platform intentionally. You have to treat your platform like a product, and you have to think about your users, their goals. But when you start thinking about it like a product, you really want to embrace those three tiers we've talked about. And it's more than just portals and pipelines and workflow engines. Obviously, I'm biased, right? I'm working with Syntasso. We have Kratix and Syntasso Kratix Enterprise. If you want to know more about this and how we think about the platform as a product mindset, how we work with teams to get that portal connecting in with the platform orchestration, with the infrastructure, reach out to us. We'll take Q&A now. You can always find us on the OSS Slack channels. We're in all the channels, to be honest. Reach out to us, DM us if you want to know more. Like we're baking all of our expertise. The original founders of Syntasso have lived the platform as a product. They've arguably created the platform as a product kind of meme. So we really do believe in this stuff. We're really invested in this stuff. We're always learning. So reach out with questions, reach out with feedback. We love that as well. Wrapping up. In conclusion, as Abby kind of opened up with, portals and pipelines alone do not make the platform. Portals are an amazing interface into the platform. We also like APIs. We also like CLI, whatever works for you. Portals are a great interface, as are other things. Pipelines, workflow engines are really good tools for deployment and for automation, but use them accordingly. And orchestration is where, if you get that kind of thing right, is what you really see the speed, the safety, the efficiency, and critically the scalability of your platform. Particularly if you're a big enterprise, this scalability, this platform democracy, this multiplayer mode, many names, but this is critical. An enterprise platform sort of lives and dies in the scalability thing. So orchestration is kind of the bedrock of getting those four pillars correct, particularly the final one. You really want to avoid platform decay. I thoroughly encourage you to check out Abby's webinar from last year, but I was sold when Abby was talking about platform decay. It's a thing, right? We see it, we've lived it, many of us in Syntasso. Got to treat your platform like a product. Don't just use automation. You want to make like the whole platform like consistent, good API, good lifecycle management, good composability. Don't just stitch automation tools together. And on that mode, I think I'll pause, hopefully take some Q&A. Well, I've got the QR code there that goes to the article that supports this webinar, so you can scan that QR code with your mobile device. There's also links there. We'll be sharing the links and everything later on. But at that point, I shall say thanks for your time. I think we're bang on time. I'm sure Abby will appear in just a moment, and we'll take some Q&A, Abby, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think, like all great hosts, it's actually just such a pleasure having the microphone turn around and be able to actually hear from you, right? So often the
Cheers.
the hosts get to hide behind, and I can see from the comments that what you're describing is something that people are experiencing, right? That we
Yes,
had a
yes.
comment from Daniel, hi Daniel, about how you're describing his experience, and seen a bunch of emojis going off the screen and all that.
Nice.
I think from my perspective, I think the thing that I love when you speak about these topics is that you bring in such a perspective of the history of developing software and of the wider ecosystem, right? Sometimes we can become so focused on platform engineering or platform as a product or a really narrow part of the industry based on our job titles or based on the task work that's in front of us, that we lose track of how much fantastic work there is that we can build off of. And I think your comments around the 3-tier architecture and how that resonates with experience building other software, and
Yeah.
how all the different kind of tools and companies in the space are sort of coming around to that being a necessary part of building platforms is just, yeah, I think that helps set the scene quite well. So thank you
Cheers,
for
Abby.
that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Um, yeah, I think the with thinking about those tiers and thinking about the fact that you know both portals and pipelines are important components of this platform, but they're not the entire kind of picture. What would you recommend to people that are starting from that perspective, like they've already invested in their platform or in their portals, and they've already invested in some sort of a workflow engine or a pipeline engine, to try and give them that broader control over their platform with orchestration? What would be kind of some early steps they could take?
Yeah, good job. And I'm probably going to lean on some of your advice in this one, but like thinking about the platform APIs is often a good start. Do you know what I mean? In terms of we talk about the three tiers, and I see a lot of people wanting to go top down, as in they want to say, I start with a portal. We also see folks going bottom up, wanting to start with infrastructure. I think really you want to start middle out. You want to think about what APIs do I want to offer my platform users. I think even I know you've got a card game, Abby. We didn't name check that card, stack the deck card game, right? I think it's kicking around. Yeah, so we're definitely like made to do a webinar on that soon. But Abby's created this game which really helps folks think about how do I design the inputs and the outputs of my platform. What are the sort of parameters you want to, you need to specify into the API to be able to deploy various components within your platform. So I think that was how I'd start, Abby. I would always say talk to your customers first. I probably should wind it back a little bit. Like if you're a platform builder, go and have a chat with your dev teams. Like where are they struggling the most? Do you know what I mean? They always recommend doing that. But then if you can, start middle out. Like I'm sure all of us as developers, whatever role we do, we all recognize the power of APIs. If you can have that clear contract between the developers and the platform team, kind of magic happens. Like it's not a excuse not to talk to each other, but it's a good framework to cue those conversations up when things are evolving, things are changing. So I think, yeah, definitely riffing off what you said in the past, Abby, but think about your APIs, your platform APIs, think about your lifecycle management, and then that's a good place to start.
I love that. It's combining those sort of evergreen advice around, well, just talk to
Yeah,
people.
yeah,
Like
100%.
software is about solving problems for people, but with the sort of more tactical, more technical solution aspects of it around what does an API look like? How do you design those interfaces and create that opportunity for, as you say, operations of things? So
Yeah.
remember everyone, throw your questions in. We're getting a couple in as we come, and I want to make sure we answer anything that has struck you during this fantastic presentation. And I think it was actually feeding off of that operations side of things. And this is something I actually hear a lot of people but ask us about. But Simon here had a question around the challenges and costs to centralizing day twos. You talked about the fact that you could centralize a sort of day two, not give that puppy for Christmas. But Simon's asking if that feels a bit like going back to ops, and is that dangerous if the platform that may not have the context have for the use of those things is now managing centrally some of those operations.
I feel like the old classic dev and ops silos, right, back in the day. It's an interesting one, Abby. Yeah, so we talk a lot about this sort of multiplayer mode, platform democracy, like making it easy for folks to contribute. So I think that's key. But like there always, often, always has to be some level of ownership around things. So we talk a lot about sort of platform teams kind of own the platform, but they can tap in specialists when they need to. Do you know what I mean? So platform team, and again, I know you got some. Actually, I'll give the floor to you in a second, Abby, because you got some even like clearer thoughts on this. I think when I was chatting to you last week in the office, I remember you like talking about this. But like for me, in my mind, having sort of platform team owning the mechanics of the platform is really valuable, but enabling specialists to contribute, network updates, database updates, 0-day patches or whatever, like that in my mind is key. So it's that healthy tension of you're centralizing sort of the ownership, but you're decentralizing some of the responsibility, if that's the right word, in terms of like, if you've got a database patch that needs to be done, maybe you as a platform team don't know how to do that, but you can reach out to your friendly database teams and they can help you. But I remember I was chatting to you in the office last week, Abby. You were sort of saying around this kind of like we have different names for our personas, don't we? And you were sort of like pitching some ideas around who owns the platform, who doesn't, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think you're describing exactly, I think, what we were talking about, which is that you need to know who owns things. I don't know. I've been around the kind of agile development space for long enough to know that if everyone owns something, no one owns it, right?
Yes.
Coming out of like a retrospective, like everyone's gonna just try harder, and it's like, well, that is gonna fall on its face, right? Like,
Indeed.
what's the action? Who's gonna own this? Who's responsible for it? And we see that practice by platforms we depend on. So, like cloud providers tell us that there are certain things that the cloud provider owns. This is the responsibility matrix, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, the cloud provider owns physical security of the servers. We can't own physical security because we don't know where those servers are located in the world. But once they give us that server, we own patching the server, because once we have the OS running on it, they're not touching the running software on it. And
Yeah.
we basically need to create those responsibility matrices within our own organizations. Like who owns the deployment of Postgres, who owns the tables within Postgres. And now all of a sudden upgrades become a bit more owned and obvious. And so I think you talked really articulately there about what the platform team owns, so the framework, the consistency, the support on actually getting things as a service made available in the organization, and what the kind of capability owners are in charge of. So that's your networking team, your database team, and how they can all contribute those services and capabilities. But then there's also going to be the user ownership. So what is it that the people who are using that network need to do in the case of adding green listed endpoints, or things like that that they may have some ownership over. So um, I think we talk about re-centralizing, but it's doing so through an ownership model, not just through a brick wall that requires a ticket to be handed over
Plus one,
and
plus one.
requested.
Yeah,
So
100%.
yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I think the next question that kind of comes to mind is when we start talking about the need for these kind of modern ways of thinking about platform, we want to think about when to put them in place. So some early warning signs around hitting that platform decay and needing to sort of
Ooh.
invest in that day two um, framework around how we manage our platforms. What are some of those early signs you've seen as you've worked with customers and in your past lives?
Yeah, the great question, Abby, and I definitely will throw back to your platform engineering webinar you did last year as well for more detail. But I think for me, it was mostly around that data experience when you just bumped into the toil. Do you know what I mean? Like like I do remember I won't name check the company because it probably would be the right thing to do. But I was working as a consultant 10 years ago. And we got the day one experience rocking, right? And we did a big Black Friday launch or whatever, like Cyber Monday launch. And then like that was great, but then like the weeks and months afterwards, there was just friction. Do you know what I mean? Like as in, well, not more like a toil to use my earlier analogy. We just found ourselves like, how do I upgrade this thing? And it was a case of like, who clicked the button? Who owns this thing? And that was a sure sign of like, we'd done the you click it, you own it. And in the like foray and the fury of like launching for Cyber Monday, didn't always check who was owning what. So like it all shipped and all worked. But then when we were coming to upgrade stuff, we couldn't, in particular, we couldn't upgrade as a fleet. I remember distinctly like Postgres databases. Like we were a big Postgres shop, and there was, I don't know, some patch or something like that, and we've got to roll it out. And people were like, "Where are all the Postgreses?" They used to be in a rack in the office, right? This is how the old school company, and then we put them all in the cloud, and they couldn't see them anymore. To your point, right? That was great. It sort of offloaded the burden of like managing the tin or whatever. But when it came to upgrades, like the ops folks were like, in the past, I just ran like a audit of all my tin here and happy days, right? And now it's not quite so easy in the Amazon, in a cloud. We happen to be on Amazon. So that was a sure sign for me. We thought about that day one experience. We were bumping into toil, lots of manual processes, scripts, logging into things and fixing it. And like the ops team, platform team, as they call themselves, in particular, were like, this sucks, right? Do you know what I mean? They're like, that was a sure sign that I think we did really well in creating the initial platform, but we hadn't thought about the platform for the day two, the puppy after Christmas, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think that's actually a kind of quite a thread throughout your talk, isn't it? That portals and pipelines and workflow engines can do a lot of heavy lifting. They can sort of get you started and give you that very early sort of dopamine hits. But
Yeah,
when
yeah,
you're
that
looking
sugar
to
rush.
actually scale and keep things going, that's where you can start to hit pain. And so I think, Bianca's asking here a question that really gets to the crux of the problem here, which is that she says scalability is a key part of platforms, as you say, but I'm just getting started. And I also get told to start small. So do I need to think about scalability, or is there a too soon to be thinking about scalability when building platforms?
Hmm, interesting one. I would definitely say it depends on context. Like, so I mentioned NatWest, right? Like, one of our flagship customers. Like, for that kind of organization, it's never too early to be thinking about scalability because, like, even if they're doing sort of like a greenfield build, right? Do you mean like the bank is just hundreds, thousands of developers, so you got to think about it from day one. We bump into a whole bunch of like SMBs, small medium businesses, enterprises, and for those folks, I'd probably say optimize for the early three of the pillars, but then and actually, I'd be interesting, Abby, what you think on this, and I'm sure Colin, our boss, might have different opinions on this as well. So probably be careful how much I say, right? But in my mind, you want to sort of optimize for all four of the pillars we talked about, but I think the first three can be kind of like even the first two sometimes kind of like get you like get you a little bit further along. But then, like, we've definitely seen some folks optimize for the first two, which is kind of the portals and pipelines anti-pattern, not even think about efficiency, that fleet management, let alone thinking about kind of the scalability, right? So I'm going to kind of contradict myself. If you are a one-person shop, or even if you just like you are the DevOps person slash database specialist slash da da da, maybe it is too early to start thinking about that efficiency, because like you're the one going to be doing all the contributions. But if you are an enterprise, I say it's never too early. So probably rambling on a bit there, and probably that Bianca, if you want to reach out and DM like one-on-one, happy to do that, because it does depend a lot on your context. I guess my TLDR really is, if you're a big enterprise, always think about the four pillars in lockstep. If you're a smaller company, you might be able to get away with not doing that, but be careful.
Yeah, and it's sometimes about making sure you don't discourage the ability to get to efficiency and scalability early days. So you're picking tools that you know will get you there, even if you're not exercising the aspects of those right from the get-go,
That
right?
is a great point, Abby. Yep,
And
yep.
again, it's based on if you think your organization will get there. If you're going to always be a
Yep.
small organization, you're not kind of VC backed looking for that hockey stick growth, then maybe there isn't a need. But if you are, you're going to be aware. So I think
Good point.
Jabril
Really
is
good
just
point.
jumping
Yep.
into that kind of set of questions and asking about how you'd have advice for those smaller teams. So you mentioned that already, that those first two kind of parts of the pillars behind platform engineering and platform building are particularly poignant for small teams.
Yes.
But
Yes. Yes.
what would you tell a smaller team, and smaller in quotes here from Jabril,
Yeah.
the what would you tell a smaller team to get started with, and where they should start with their investment?
Yeah, and I think optimizing for the three pillars, the first three pillars is probably key. Like I do think like it's tempting to focus on the two, and I kind of get it, because that is like speed and that safety. Like everyone gets that. That's why the portals and pipelines thing just pops up. Like, and portals give you the speed because I can visualize, I can, you know, use a template. The safety stuff is like I'm gonna run my workflows, I can run my pipelines. But like managing things sort of at scale, like if you are a small company, but you can have overnight success these days, right? Particularly with the land of AI stuff, like people are blowing up like within days, weeks, months, and then you have scalability whether you like it or not. So the scalability is like, you know, now I'm going to need to bump up my VMs, my serverless, whatever it is you're serving your end users. You know, you're going to have to scale that out. So I do think optimize for the first three pillars is the sensible thing to do. Like, you know, it kind of, and I'm almost hearing Colin's voice, like our boss echoing in my head. You've got to do them at kind of lockstep. Otherwise, if you're not managing your things as a fleet, then when you want to upgrade stuff or you want to maintain stuff, it goes back to being sort of the snowflake style things of doing specialist, what's the analogy, like the pets versus cattle, all that kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? So, good question, Jabril. I do, you know, there's definitely check out the Syntasso blog. We've wrote, as I know you know all too well. Um, but we've written a bunch of stuff like folks sort of getting started. And I like what you said, Abby, about sort of choosing the right tools to help you grow. And obviously, I'm biased. Check out Kratix, right? But there's other tools in this space too. But I think thinking about those first three pillars in lockstep, that speed, that safety, that efficiency, is really a key thing. And your tool choice and how you architect the platform, how you treat it as a product as well, really is important to do from early steps.
Awesome. Well, we're like pretty much at time here, but I think Dirk has come in just under the wire here for one last one. Daniel, I apologize.
Yeah, we're good. We're
It's a
good. Go
really
for it.
good question though, around how the orchestrator can work in a specific scenario. So Dirk is asking about the scenario of needing to do a switch over to a backup of a database. So a situation where you have this Postgres database that has backups, and you need to be able to switch in that backup. And like, why wouldn't I just have a user click a button that says switch over to backup? What would the orchestrator come in and manage for you or help you with in that sort of recovery scenario, of a database?
Oh, that's super interesting. I'll definitely tag you on this one, Abby, as well. That's a great, cheers, that's a great question. And because we like conversations we have with customers all the time is around API design of the platform, how you build your API, and how you do lifecycle management. And that's kind of what Dirk's hinting at here, right? For me, like sort of databases, like arguably some of that lifecycle management. Like there's a whole bunch of things there. Like how do you just set up the databases? Like you might have active, right? And that would be codified in your platform service. Like when we're in a production environment, this is HA active, and there you bake logic accordingly into the workflows and how you deploy those things. um, sometimes Dirk's right. There is just a case of like having a button you click and things fail over. But I think a lot of that is around API choice, is around the lifecycle management choice, and it does depend on what your requirements are. And Abby, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking that conversation you've had, Gregor Hopper's floating platform. And I think you even had an example that I've seen you talk about before, where you had like a, what was it, like a zero deployment, a zero downtime requirement around database upgrades and stuff. And that kind of is
Yeah.
similar here, I think, right?
Yeah, I think it's about, where is what I was talking about in that example was where the logic for how to manage a zero downtime deployment lives.
That's it. Yeah.
Ideally, like that's not really a differentiator for your organization. So can you depend on a third party provider? So there are cloud providers that can manage this now. There are some that can't. That was my example was at the time that our cloud provider could not do that. And so we had to build the harness around that, but we didn't want to have ownership forever. But I think that, what's being asked about here, Dirk, is about, when there are these one-off operational concerns, are these orchestrated or are these just executed? And I think
Fair point.
the there's always going to be execution of one-off concerns that have to do with sort of SRE management, incident management, and things like that. And that needs to be able to be done. So part of an orchestrator is something that can actually kind of pause and let you do your remediation when you're in the middle of an incident, and then let you get back to reconciling state and managing the kind of normal state again. So it's okay to have some one-off scenarios, but if this is something you do a lot, like if you find that doing this blue green is part of your deploy process, well, then you do want to take this out of a pipeline situation and you want to put this into something that can maintain your business rules around it as well. And that's really where the orchestration comes in, is your business rules around when to execute these blue green deployments and what are the security around it and the performance and everything else. So I think, yeah, so it's hard always in these like one directional questions. So like
Yeah.
Daniel said, if you want to chat more, just reach out
It's a
and we can
great
talk through the
question.
exact
We do bump into this
examples.
a lot, Abby, don't we?
But
Like that question.
yeah, definitely. Like, where does operations start? Where does orchestration start? Like, how do those interact? But we are now at time here for this webinar. So I really appreciate, Daniel, all the knowledge that you've shared with us all here around the platform facade, how to take us from portals and pipelines and into the space of orchestration. And for everyone who's been able to join us, thank you for your questions. Thank you for your engagement. And please do share. We're going to be on YouTube with this video afterwards, and so you can catch back up again, share it around, and reach out to us on our community Slack, within the CNCF Slacks, within LinkedIn, wherever you find your normal humans. We tend to be there as well. So just come say hi. Thank you again so much, and
Thanks, Abby.
we hope to see you at the next one.
Thanks, everyone.